Thank you all. So the last question that we had here was, what advice would you give to others to build authentic relationships centered in identity and culture? And you all actually started hitting a little bit on that. Also, Susan, you just talked about curiosity being a big thing that you were, as you were talking about. But so I'm going to put that question out there, but also we have about 10 minutes. So if there's anything else that you wanted to say that you haven't had an opportunity to say, this is I'll give you the opportunity to do that as well.
Sweet. I'll jump first this time. How many people saw or participated in the We Won't Be Erased movement last Sunday? Okay, great. Quite a few. So my advice would be to go for good ideas. One of the folks that works in an organization that I work for put this question out on Facebook. Does anybody want to form a line between Chicago Avenue and Otis Avenue in St. Paul? And immediately I called him like, what the hell are you doing? That's 3.5 miles and 3 major intersections, 1 railroad track, a highway, and 10 stoplights. Because I counted. Because I'm the director and that's my job. And you know, all the directorial questions. Who the marshals? Did you talk to the police yet? What, you know, what? You're doing this during group time. What if something bad happens? Who are they going to sue? I understand you're doing it as your citizen, and you can organize protests and events if you want. And you're doing it during group time, and you're doing it with youth from our programming. And if anything bad happens, they're not going to come for you, the individual. They're going to come for the organization. And this is a person that I've known since he was 14 in youth programming. And he said, Rox, why you always gotta block the good stuff? And so I went away and I meditated and I chanted and I talked to my friends and I came back and I said, okay, what can I do to support you in this effort? What does the organization need to know, and what should we do to support you? And have you thought about these 10 things that are going to drive me crazy if I don't know what you've thought about it? And what happened was people lined up from Chicago Avenue in Minneapolis to Cretin and beyond in St. Paul. 3.5 miles, 3 major intersections, a highway, 2 sets of railroad tracks, and a whole bunch of stoplights. That's thousands of people, right? He put this out on Facebook on Monday, and in less than a week, got more than like 7,000 people to show up and form a line and make signs and get council members to show up on a Sunday morning and make a press release, right? That's major. And 3 people organized that. And they did it with no money, and they did it with no organizational support or resources. And so my advice is to go for the good ideas. No matter how outlandish they seem, no matter what the risk involved is, if we do that first thing of listen, we can actually get to the result that we're looking for. And this result was visibility, and to tell the world we won't be erased. And I think it happened because that stuff went viral. There's like 1 million clicks on it.
My advice comes from something I observed and learned a couple years ago. We were having a staff retreat, and it was being facilitated by our colleague Ricardo Levins Morales. And he had us do this thing. I won't get the words exactly right, but it was a line actually of our team. and he had us line up on a continuum, and it was something like, based on how you show up in your work, how you bring your personal history, who you are, your private life. Private life might not have been the right word, but that personal story into your work. And what was so interesting, I found myself kind of in the middle, because I'm a pretty introverted private person, and so I tend not to share a lot. But what I saw was that our younger staff were way over there on one side, as like they were all in, showing up as they are, completely in the work, and older staff were on the other side, and it was just interesting to observe. But what I think that was an illustration of is a shift in our culture, and that something is happening that is changing, and basically the white supremacy culture way of being in work and in community. And I think that showing up as ourselves completely and seeing the deep connection, especially in the work we're doing, between our histories, our culture, our families, our private lives, and the work we're doing in community is so important. And I think there's something for us all to learn from that. And I think that what I need to do and what I encourage all of us to do is to practice it, because shifting culture requires that deep intention and practice every single day. And if we don't do that with a lot of force and intention, we automatically revert back to what has been. So I can see it now, that line that we made, and I want to myself keep moving toward that other side.
Yeah. For my European descended sisters and brothers in the room, my advice is to let go of the belief that you are an expert on anything. Utah Phillips, I don't know, maybe I'm the only one old enough in the room to remember Utah Phillips was a labor activist back in the 20s and 30s, and he used to say, an expert, an X is a has-been, and a spurt is an annoying drip of water, so why would we want to be an expert on anything anyway? Take a lot of my cues from Miles Horton, the founder of the Highlander School, so that comes from one of his stories. And then my other piece is inspired by you just said, Vina, is we have to start listening to young people and engaging them in whatever it is that we're planning and we're trying to do. We need young people at the table. Young people helping us plan and facilitate and design community engagement, and young people's sort of perspectives in the middle of what we decide to co-create for ourselves and our communities for tomorrow. That's all.
My advice is, I have a few things written down. One is delving a little deeper into your identity. I've been at multiple events like this, experiences where people are coming to the table and saying, I don't know. And the reality is it's there, and you need to bring it up. And you need to understand it, because we've all had a history. We've all had histories of good, of bad, of evil, and we've suppressed them, we've claimed them, and you just need to be aware of it. You need to identify it, and you need to own that there is an identity attached to you. And there are identities that are like Minnesotan and sweet corn, and that's great. But you should be aware of that. You should be aware of how you exist in the world. To get into not making assumptions, I think that's a really important piece of self-work that all of us have to do. And flex a little bit on the external. We're in a society that really works on and loves binaries and checking boxes, and it's really important in certain cases like census data and understanding various things in our community. But work really hard to identify where multiple boxes can be checked, where there's gray space between gender binaries, cultural groups that have check boxes next to them, how people are experiencing the world, and how those intersect is really important to flex on, because there just is not a black and white about things most of the time. And then finally with that is like, understand experience as a credential. I almost want people to stop looking at education backgrounds, at titles, at letters, you know, behind your name, because ultimately, I've just heard bullshit coming out of people with titles and positions of power, and I've heard real, genuine wisdom and knowledge with people who don't even associate themselves with letters behind or in front of their names. And that's important to know and to step into, so that we aren't making those assumptions as we walk into the room, or just by the things that we're seeing or hearing associated with a person. Just listen to what they have to say and what they've done. And that's it.
Great, thank you so much. You all join me in thanking our panel for